Alcohol Abuse, Backgrounds, Impacts, Pharmaceutical Treatments, and Narrative Therapy by Dan Schmidt for Cornerstone University. Alcohol abuse statistics. Alcohol poisoning kills 6 people every day. 76% of adults ages 35 to 64 are affected by this. 3 out of 4 are killed by alcohol poisoning are men. More than 15 million people struggle with an alcohol abuse disorder in the United States. Less than 8% of these receive treatment. Teen alcohol use kills 4,700 people each year. That's more than all illegal drugs combined. And drunk driving costs the United States $199 billion each year. What is alcohol abuse? Alcohol abuse is characterized by compulsive preoccupation with obtaining alcohol, loss of control over consumption, and development of tolerance and dependence, as well as impaired social and occupational functioning. In narrative therapy, the life events that make up a person's past are viewed as stories. Some of these stories stand out as being more significant and more negative than others. These significant stories that come from negative events can ultimately shape one's identity. The narrative therapist aims to help clients to see beyond this identity to the alternative possible identities. The therapist does not act as the expert, but instead helps the client to see how they are the expert regarding their own life story and how they can rewrite their stories based on dreams, values, goals, and skills that define who they really are, separate from their problems. What is alcohol abuse? The signs and symptoms may include being unable to limit the amount of alcohol you drink and or feeling strong cravings or urges to drink alcohol, unsuccessful attempts to quit or cut down on how much you drink, failing to fulfill major obligations at work, school, or home due to repeated alcohol use, continuing to drink even though you know that it's causing physical, social, or interpersonal problems, giving up or reducing social and work activities and hobbies, using alcohol in situations where it's not safe, such as when driving or swimming, developing a tolerance to alcohol so you need more to feel its effects, or you have a reduced effect from the same amount, or experiencing withdrawal symptoms such as nausea, sweating, and shaking when you don't drink, or drinking to avoid these symptoms. Physical impacts of alcohol abuse. Alcohol abuse has been linked to over 200 diseases and health issues. Here are just a few of them: heart disease, liver disease, epilepsy, many types of cancer, diabetes, stroke, seizures, gastritis, irritable bowel syndrome, balance problems, hearing loss, and restlessness. There are also mental impacts of alcohol abuse. Alcohol abuse also impacts the brain. Some of these impacts include anxiety, depression, memory loss, slowed reaction times, anxiety, and dementia. What causes the addiction? Research has shown that alcohol abuse can cause an abnormal activity in the prefrontal cortex, which can lead to deficits in executive functions of the brain that monitor and resolve conflict. Alcohol abuse causes mesolimbic dopamine hypofunction, a condition significant for the maintenance of addiction by promoting ethanol intake to compensate for its decreased efficacy on dopamine release and by motivating the resumption of drinking during withdrawal to reverse the dopamine deficit. Alcohol consumption activates dopamine neurotransmission in the limbic system. Therefore, when an individual tries to quit abusing alcohol, it will cause a substantial decrease in dopamine activity, causing this withdrawal. Basically, this means that the brain of an alcoholic tells them to keep drinking alcohol to achieve and or maintain such functions like pleasurable reward, behavior and cognition, memory, attention, inhibition, sleep, and mood. What causes the addiction? Addiction is rooted in a thirst inside of us to meet an unmet need. Whether it is to fill a void or forget a trauma, addiction is used as a replacement to meet that need. This is the reason that there is a need for a two-tiered approach to treatment. The pharmaceutical treatment can help the addict through the actual chemical dependency, but it is not meant to help the client understand what drew them to the initial feeling that alcohol provided in the first place. This is where psychological treatments, like narrative therapy, come into play. Psychological therapy can help the client identify those traumas, life events, and/or voids in their lives that they were trying to replace with alcohol. Some pharmaceutical treatments. FDA-approved treatments include disulfiram. This changes the way your body breaks down alcohol, so if you drink while you are taking it, you'll get sick. Therefore, the hope is that you're probably not going to drink as much or at all. Naltrexone allows the client to feel drunk, but does not allow you to feel the pleasure that usually comes with drinking alcohol. This medication aids to break the relationship with alcohol and pleasure rewards. The medication is also known to help ward off cravings. Acamprostat eases withdrawal symptoms such as insomnia, anxiety, restlessness, and feeling blue. That can last for months after you stop drinking. The non-FDA approved medications work much like acamprostat by interacting with two chemical messenger systems in the brain, the GABA, short for gamma aminobutyric acid, and glutamate. GABA, when working properly, controls certain nerve cells that help control fear or anxiety. Glutamate stimulates nerve cells. The physical or psychological treatments, there's individual therapies such as psychodynamic, supportive, expressive, or cognitive behavioral, and also group and family therapies, which offer a greater amount of support and accountability to clients while in recovery. Psychotherapy needs to be directed at the causes of that behavior, situations in which the patient uses psychoactive substance, expected effects of the psychoactive substance, and alternative ways of coping with these situations, as well as changing inadequate behavior patterns and improvement of interpersonal communication. The balance of these symptoms in an alcohol abuser's brain gets thrown off. Acamprostat and the non-FDA medications have been shown to help rebalance these systems. Narrative therapy views people as separate from their problems and helps clients see that past problems or issues can actually be helping them or protecting them more than hurting them. With this new perspective, individuals feel more empowered to make changes in their thought patterns and behavior and rewrite their life story for a future that reflects who they are, what they are capable of, and what their purpose is, separate from their problems. There are many types of narrative therapy. 5 of them that are popular in use for addiction treatment are as follows. Storytelling helps the client develop their story and gives them an opportunity to reinterpret their experiences and discover new meaning, find healing, and establish or reestablish an identity, all integral factors for success in therapy. Externalization technique. This involves leading the client to review their problems or behaviors as external or separate from him or her, as it can be much easier to change a behavior that you engage in than it is to change a characteristic that is a part of you. The deconstruction technique. This refers to breaking down the client's issues and making them easier to understand and address. Deconstructing the issue can help you clarify what the core issue or issues actually are. Unique outcomes technique. This involves changing one's own storyline. If the purpose of narrative therapy is to construct a storyline to the client's experiences which provides meaning and gives them a positive, functional identity, the purpose of unique outcomes technique is to help the client change their perspective and perceive more positive and life-giving narratives. Existentialism. This is a narrative therapy approach that encourages individuals to make their own meaning and find their own purpose rather than to search for some pre-existing absolute truth. Narrative therapy styles. One style of narrative therapy is a statement of position map. There are 4 parts to this. The first part is to identify and label the problem. This means to negotiate and define the problem or concern. Part 2 is to identify the effects the problem has caused in each area of life, like home, work, school, relationships, etc. Mapping of the effects or influence of the problem through the various areas of life in which complications are identified. Part 3 is to evaluate how you feel about the problem and how it's affected each of those areas in your life. So you're supposed to evaluate and ask yourself some questions. Is this okay with you? How do you feel about this? Is this a positive or negative development? Or would you say that it may be both positive and negative in its development? Or maybe neither of these? And finally, step 4, identify why the effects of this problem are undesirable. Justify your evaluation. Why is or isn't this okay for you? Why do you feel this way about this development? How come you're taking this stand or position in this area? Narrative therapy also has another style called expressive arts, and within that there are many different forms of guided therapy. One of them is to meditate. Guided relaxation or individual meditation can be extremely effective and a wonderful way to explore a problem or issue in your life. Journaling. Journaling has many potential benefits. You can consider a specific set of questions. How does the problem affect you? Or how did the problem take hold in your life? Or simply write a description of yourself or your story from the point of view of the problem. Although it can be difficult to get started, there is a greater understanding of the problem and how it influences every area of your life if you can get the client to get a hold of that. Drawing or art. If you're more interested in depictions of the problem and how that might impact your experience, you can use your skills at drawing or painting. You can use many different formats there, charcoal drawings and whatnot to achieve this. Whatever the client would maybe be comfortable with would be the greatest way to do that. And they can create symbolic drawings, or they can make a map of the problems in their life, create a cartoon that represents the problems. There's many different ways that they can go about using that technique. Movement is another. You can use simple medium of movement and mindfulness to create and express your story. Begin by moving in a usual way and allow your problems to influence your movement. This could be through dance or an expressive style of movement. There's many different ways to use this technique. You can transition it into a metaphorical or physical exploration of how to escape the problem using that movement technique. And also visualization. This technique you can use to consider how your life might turn out in a week or in a month or a year or a few years down the road, both with the problem continuing or without the problem, and then look at those alternate visualizations. Then you can share the experience, and as a therapist, being able to help them to understand what those two different views or multiple different views would look like, and be able to reflect on those experiences, and then maybe go back and journal about those experiences. So you can definitely use one or more of these styles of expressive art therapies to help a client. There are many different ways to use narrative therapy. The therapist should be open to using whatever style the client would be most comfortable with. A combination of narrative therapy styles should be helpful for many clients. Do not be afraid to try different combinations as you get to know the clients and their needs. Thank you for watching.